Hello and welcome into In the Pocket Across the Pond. I'm Lewis. As always, I'm joined by Alex and Alex. This week on the podcast, we're talking what we're thankful for in fantasy football. I've no idea why we're doing that this week, but we are. We're also taking a dip back into the Jacuzzi of Concern, specifically AFC North edition, though. A lot of big injuries in that division, so we're going to talk the collateral damage of that. And Alex Sharples is going to talk us through a couple of trades, one really fair trade and one not so fair. Pretty stupid trade, and he's going to talk you through them, why one of them is unfair, why one of them is fair. And as always, we're going to be taking a look back at the previous week, and we're going to be taking a look forward with our projection beaters. All hits last week, so there's no need to go into them in too much detail this week. If you want to get in contact with us, it's inthepocketacrossthepond@gmail.com. As I said, I'm Lewis. I'm joined by the two Alexes. Off we go. I believe Alex Sharples has prepared a not impromptu at all rendition of Enrique Iglesias' Hero for our fallen players this week.
Yeah. No, I'm not doing that anymore. Mark Andrews is coming back at the end of the season, so...
All right, okay, fair enough. I mean, I think we should just get right into that, the Thursday night game, because it was a great example of us, sort of cursing ourselves recording this on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, naturally, and a weekly show, but it's like so much stuff happened on that Thursday night game that it was almost as if we'd already missed a week's worth of NFL content that night. Obviously, the Ravens came out with a win, sort of mired by all of the injuries. Joe Burrow's done for the year. Mark Andrews was done for the year, but maybe not. Maybe he's coming back. The Ravens did win that pretty comfortably, though, which was obviously overshadowed by the injuries. But can we talk about the Ravens for a minute? Are these guys legitimate Super Bowl contenders, Al? Yeah, probably. I mean, it's weird. They went through that stage kind of from, week 3 till week 9-ish, where they were kind of just suffocating everyone they played. Bad performance last week, and then this week they come out and it's a little bit of a shootout. I suppose it shows that they can win in different ways. But I don't know. My confidence is still hit a little bit from last week with the Ravens because we thought they'd got over that not putting teams away thing. And I know it sounds stupid that I'm saying this after they've won, but, Burrow gets injured. The Bengals are never going to win that game. They put up a lot of points and Lamar Jackson's playing tidy football, still not running the ball as much or effectively as I think someone of his talent should be able to. And I think the lack of a guy in the backfield, in the running back room, might come to hurt them. And the lack of a number one wide receiver. So I guess all this means I'm saying no, apparently, because I just don't think Odell Beckham is going to have 4 catches for 116 yards every week. I think Zay Flowers needs to step up, and he's not going to. Your best receiver, Mark Andrews, has just got injured. What a awful response to a 34-20 win from me. But
I know,
and I mean, I asked that question because the Ravens are 8-3 now. One of, by the way, can I just say, I know Sharples loves to hate on the Cowboys, and he loves to tell us how many games the Cowboys have lost. Ravens one of only 3 teams in the whole NFL with a better record than the Cowboys. Yeah! So, there you go.
Listen, absolutely grand. You ain't going to win anything.
Do you agree with Al on the Ravens, Chefs? Because they do have, I believe, best record in the AFC.
Yeah.
Currently the team to beat in that conference. What do you think?
I just think when push comes to shove, they won't win the big games. So I don't think they're a true Super Bowl contender, which I think was your initial question. I think the Chiefs will beat them when it comes to it. I think the Dolphins will beat them when it comes to it. I think they'll finish top of the division. I think they'll have quite a high seed, but I'm still, and I know we've had Lamar injuries in the past, but I'm still yet to see a definitive win from this team when it really matters. And so until I see it, I'm not going to believe it, I think.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I love it how we liked before the season to say this idea that all the best teams were in the AFC, but you look at it and it's like the Bills don't look great at the minute. The Dolphins can't beat anyone with a winning record. The Chiefs are legit. Obviously they're legit, but they did just lose to the Eagles. Well, the Ravens look a bit shaky. The Browns, I think, do look like a great team, but I mean, are you buying the Jaguars or anyone in the AFC South? Whereas you flick over to the NFC, the Eagles are legit. Cowboys, we're saying, are legit. San Francisco, Lions, Vikings are still a good team. Don't mention the NFC South.
Yeah, true. Let's jump from the first game of the week right to the last game of the week then. The Chiefs-Eagles. Eagles taking the Chiefs down. I mean, to me, this game was completely dominated by the obvious lack of receivers for the Chiefs. They just can't get it really done. And like, as opposed to previous years where it was the Chiefs' defence turning up in big moments to help the offence out, it's flipped on its head now, and that offence is the more consistent sort of cog in that machine. But the offence isn't turning up when it matters like the defence did in previous years, because you've seen Mahomes not connecting with these guys. Kelsey, multiple drop passes. MVS had what would have been, a walk-off game-winning touchdown, which you could argue was slightly overthrown. I know that's what Patrick Mahomes said, because Patrick Mahomes is a good leader and isn't throwing his team under the bus. You could argue it was overthrown. You could also argue that any receiver worth his weight catches that for a touchdown. I mean, what do we think about the Chiefs here? Because, again, I will throw it out that I know they've been winning games, but this is a game that the Eagles could have lost easily, and they just didn't because of the other team's mistakes. The Eagles could have lost. Like the Cowboys game, the Eagles provided their opponent with plenty of chances to win the game, and the opponent just didn't do that. Sharples, you were going to say something, go on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the sort of lack of weapons, as good as an offensive mind as Andy Reid is, as good of a player as Patrick Mahomes is. I mean, Travis Kelce aside, it's like having LeBron James and lining him up with a bag of peanuts. That well soon.
The 2018 Cavs, otherwise known as.
Yeah. Like him and a random assortment of objects will still probably win 70% of the games in the regular season, but. It's these big games when it matters, and it's a Super Bowl push when they're going to get found out. I mean, obviously, Rashee Rice looks like he might be something, but I think they do, if they've got the cap room, I think they could do with bringing in a marquee wide receiver, because you're right. I mean, Mahomes is doing everything he can, and he's still got Kelsey, but Kelsey's getting towards that age, and he's the only thing on that offense that really does anything consistently. So I think it is time that we try and reel in a large fish if we can.
And Al, I mean, a little bit on the Eagles, because I know you're pretty high on the Eagles.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they just can't be... They're like just a points factory. They'll just churn out points. It's very rare. They'll score points, if not a touchdown, in 3 or 4 quarters of the game. So you've just got to try and keep up with them. Like, if you look at last night's game, 7, nothing in the second quarter, 7 in the third, 7 in the fourth. They're just a bit of a machine that way, even when the passing offense isn't clicking. Jalen Hurts was really bad through the air, 14 of 22. That win last night, I think, is all on my guy, DeAndre Swift. They ran him into the ground. He had a few nice receptions. Devonta Smith, is that his best game of the year, 699 so far?
It probably will, yeah.
Passing game wasn't there. However, they just keep churning these wins out. And we're saying, like we're saying about the Ravens or the Dolphins or the Jaguars, these teams that they've got really good records, but but we've not been impressed, You've not been impressed by some of these Eagles victories, but were you ever in doubt that they would win any of them?
Yeah.
I just think that they're the class of the NFL at the minute, and they're going to win the Super Bowl because they just keep winning. I mean, Jalen Hurts is a great leader. He's a really, really great leader. And even if he has an off game, it's the guy I'd want to have as my quarterback. So, yeah.
I think as well, just not only Jalen Hurts, but the man who's snapping in the ball every snap, Jason Kelsey. I mean, there's a lot of talk about Travis at the minute, obviously, running around with that pop star. Jason Kelsey got himself voted as the 6th sexiest man alive last week.
I did see that.
There's still hope for you, Sharples.
Yeah. Women love a bear.
Yeah.
But Trav Kelsey, dead quick, hot take. Is this the year? Has it happened? Has the fall happened?
I mean,
he's nowhere near as dominant as he's been in previous years.
But the thing is, he's nowhere near. The past few games, he hasn't seemed as dominant as he was like a month ago. So I think this is just maybe a bad patch. I think he comes out the last 2 weeks of the season and completely tears it apart. Really,
I mean, we said this about a man who had 17 fantasy points at the tight end position.
Yeah, it's great.
But I know what you mean. It's because he's normally in real life helping them win those games.
True. Moving on from those games, though, a couple of comeback victories.
It was great. Red zone was great.
Yeah, firstly by the Lions, who got down in a pretty bad deficit against the Bears, came back in really impressive fashion to win that. Now I know, you could easily say, well, they shouldn't have been in that position against the Bears in the first place, but good teams need to have these games. It's all well and good stomping teams week to week, but it's also good to see that you can dig deep, rely on the guys around you, and come from behind.
That was a play. Is a dude. Yeah. Aiden Hutchinson went 2nd overall of last year's draft. Name me the player on the defensive line that the Jaguars took 1st overall. I think he might be called Trayvon Walker.
Okay,
but I'm not sure. But
yes.
What were the Jaguars doing?
Yeah.
I mean, Aiden Hutchinson, what a player.
Yeah.
I saw a clip of him, though, and it's someone said that he runs like Waluigi, and I actually can't unsee it now. He pass rushes like Waluigi.
Yeah. Spot on.
No, I'm serious. Just watch a clip of him, you'll see what I mean.
Will do.
Should we call him Waluigi from now on then?
I think we should.
Not that we'll ever speak. Not that we'll ever talk about him, but yeah.
I know. I'm trying to think of a way to insert that into his name. There isn't a seamless way to do it on the fly. Wading Ouija Hutchin.
No, mate, cut that.
That is getting cut or not? But Al, what do you think about these lines?
Yeah. Nearly knocked something over in this room. That's how much I think. I'm just ready to throw things through a window like I'm a Lions player, and Dan Campbell's just got me heated. They look great. They look together. It's a win, like you alluded to, Lou, that I think they needed. We needed to see that this could come from behind, face a bit of adversity, and win. Amon Ross and Brown looks great. Montgomery looks great. Gibbs looks great. Jared Goff, he's playing. I thought this when I watched him the other day, and there's some quarterbacks in the league who they're playing really well. And I feel weird using this word for Jared Goff, but they're a great player, so that when they throw an interception or 3 in a game, you think to yourself, well, this is just one of those games, and he's still going to sling it, and they're still probably going to win. Whereas in previous years, that'd be like a Zach Wilson throwing 3 interceptions. That'd be like, you've got to get Jared Goff out of there. He's not the answer. After that game, even if they'd have lost, I don't think anyone would have been calling for Jared Goff's head. I think he's transitioned into, maybe that's my criteria for quarterbacks. Maybe my criteria for a great quarterback is can you have a 3 interception game and I'm still thinking you're a great player?
Alex's criteria for a great quarterback is someone who throws 3 interceptions.
Yeah, basically. my criteria for a great quarterback is, can you throw 3 interceptions yet no one questions how good you are? No. And do you get what I mean? That Goff seems to have transitioned to that next level. I think he's playing really great.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And Sharples, I want to get your opinions on the other comeback win, which was, of course, the Denver Broncos. The steaming hot Denver Broncos coming from behind to win against the Vikings. What do you reckon about that, Sharples?
It's really hard to say, because what have they won? Is it 4 on the bounce they've won now? So it's getting really hard just to sweep it under the rug. I still don't think any of them have been particularly pretty. They've all been quite close from what I remember. Obviously, they only won by a point last night, but fair play. They keep on winning. I mean, with the way that the Chargers have crumbled, and although the Raiders have looked a little bit better since the new coach, they might sneak into a playoff berth the way that their division's going. So you've got to say fair play, but I just don't know where it's coming, because I don't know about you two, but I just find it hard to get excited about anything on that offense, really. Obviously, Wilson's past his best. We've never seen anything out of Javonte Williams. I think we've all recognised that Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy aren't going to do it, but, solid defence and winning games, and fair play that they look like they're going to finish maybe around the 9-8, 10-7 mark, maybe squeaking the playoffs.
They're in the playoff. They are in the playoff, and I will say Javonte Williams did have a couple of nice games previous to this. This game wasn't a great one, and Cortland Sutton is as much as he's a meme on this show, he is a solid NFL wide receiver, and he made some clutch catches in that final drive. The touchdown grab. There was one before that where he's toe tapping it down the sideline. Some really good grabs there. I don't know, I'll talk about him in a little minute, the Broncos. But yeah, I thought it was a good win. Al, what do you think about these Broncos?
Let's ride.
No,
I mean, Russell Wilson, he's playing clean football. He's still on to throw in the 30s touchdowns and lower than 10 interceptions. Slinging it for 250 yards as well. It was never going to snap and just be what it was supposed to be at the start of last year when Russell Wilson went there. And maybe it's taken so long that, as Sharples just said, Wilson's not going to be the player that he used to be by the time things get right. But I think Cortland Sutton's a nice receiver, maybe not a wide receiver 1 in this league, with Jerry Jeudy. Certainly is not. So they could do with a piece there, a nice wide receiver in the draft next year, see what Javonte Williams develops into. But yeah, I think they could definitely make the playoffs.
Absolutely, yeah. Elsewhere in the league, Cowboys, again, nice win against the Panthers, throwing it all over the place, defense dominating, putting up points. The Texans, they're competing well earlier than anyone thought they would be, I would say. A bit of a sloppy game from CJ Stroud, I will say. Second straight game with more turnovers than touchdowns, but I love that quote.
How many interceptions did he have?
He had 3.
And he's still a great player.
There we go. But I love that quote afterwards where he's like, yeah, well, Steph Curry doesn't stop shooting, so I'm going to keep letting it ride. Love that. Peyton Manning had double the amount of interceptions that he had touchdowns in his first year or something like that. Keep letting it ride. And another offensive masterclass by the 49ers as well. The back rolling, and the hilarious Commanders losing to the Giants. But let's get into these teams then. So, impressive victory for the week. I'm going to go first because I did allude to it. I'm going to say the Broncos because they snapped the Vikings' 5-game winning streak. Impressive game-winning drive. The Vikings are a decent team. Josh Dobbs is a decent quarterback, but the Broncos, I just thought it was an impressive victory. Al?
Impressive victory. I'm going to go the Eagles because I think that cemented them as the favourites to win the whole goddamn thing, the Super Bowl. That must have cemented them to win the Super Bowl last night, so I'm going to go the Eagles.
Yeah, Sharples?
I went for the Lions, purely like we touched on. I thought really good comeback and sort of, I needed to see them come back from a kind of deficit like this, and they did do. So, I went for the Lions.
Nice. Not buying it. Win. I went for the Packers against the Chargers. I think that Packers win says more about the Chargers than it does the Packers. I.e., the Chargers' defense is atrocious. Al?
It's got to be the Giants, hasn't it? The Giants are terrible, but somehow they are Tommy DeVito with the big win. I almost went the Jaguars because I feel like how they're playing at the minute, they didn't draft Trevor Lawrence for him to... This episode, I keep acting like good things are bad things, but there's no way they drafted Trevor Lawrence for him to rush for 2 touchdowns. You know what I mean? It feels weird. I remember watching them in London earlier this year and thinking, it feels weird how much he rushes the ball. Yeah. How much that's like, he kind of gets to like his first read, it's not there and he runs. It feels off. I'll go the Giants though.
Sharples?
In less words, Giants, because they stink.
Nice. Worst team. I resisted the urge genuinely a lot this week to put the Commanders, but it's because I thought if I put the Commanders as the worst team, that is a disservice to the Giants' defense and the Commanders' defense, because both defenses were really good this week. I will say, both had plenty of takeaways, loads of sacks as well. I think it was Commanders' defense had 9 sacks. 4 sacks for the Giants, like both really good. So I feel like it would be a disservice. So I went for the team that is awful offensively, and the defense is catching up to them now as well, and that's the Jets. The Jets' defense have just stopped trying now, which I don't blame them really. So the Jets.
Yeah, I also went for Tim Boyle's Jets.
Yeah, Sharples.
I went for the Cardinals. It just feels like they want the season to be done already. It's like the time that we turned up to Saturday football after someone's Halloween party. It was raining. We were 13-0 down at half time. I still had green hair dye in my hair. The ref came up to us and said, "Do you want to just go home, lads?" We did. We said yeah, and I got a pasty on the way back from Greenhouses. That's what the Cardinals want to do.
Greenhouses regional reference there, because I believe loads of different regions have their own version of like a Greenhouses, like Galloway's in Wigan. Greenhouses is sort of more of a Bolton thing. Yeah. I know like Cheshire have like Chatworths or something. Yeah. Do you know any more? Any more pie shops?
I mean,
regional?
Well, I would say for any someone who's not familiar with these regional pie shops, it's comparable to Greg's.
Well, no, Greg's probably was that regional one in the northeast,
and then it exploded.
And then it went absolutely nuclear. Yeah, there's other ones. There is other ones though. Write in. Let us know your regional pie shop.
And did they do a Wigan kebab?
Did they do a Wigan kebab?
Yeah.
Heading to the booth, it's Brandon Staley. That's that section done. Because he is fired.
No, it's not.
Who's it?
It's Ryan Tannehill's teammate.
Ryan Tannehill's teammate?
Because the Titans clearly retired Derrick Henry mid-season. Didn't they?
Yeah, cool.
I just see this retired man there, and I'm just picking him for a job. I'm not doing the job. The Titans have already done it. They've already retired the man.
Yeah, true.
Derrick Henry, 10 carries, 38 yards.
Wow. It's meant to be Yeti season as well.
Right, we'll make a deal now, because he wasn't as bad for the first couple of months of the season as I thought he was. He just wasn't amazing Derrick Henry anymore. He's been that awful for 2 weeks now. If he's terrible this next week, we need a chat. next episode's pod about Derrick Henry and about is this it?
Yeah.
To quote Julian Casablancas, is this it?
Let's get into some of the best players from this past week, though. Funnily enough, a bit of a correlation with our players that we had an intervention with last week.
They heard us.
They did hear us.
You were losing your mind over Calvin Ridley.
Yes, because there was no world where I was ever going to start Calvin Ridley last week because he'd been absolute garbage. So it's like he's going off for 2 touchdowns and however many yards and getting pebbled with tags. It's like, this is no good for anyone, mate. Because I know on the podcast I probably said, never play him again.
Yeah, well,
so,
you obviously didn't CC Pollard into the email when you emailed Lawrence and Ridley the podcast episode last week. Pollard didn't get the memo.
he was all right, though, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Anyway, top 5 of the position, quarterback, Trevor Lawrence.
Hey.
Brock Purdy, Justin Herbert, another nice game. Lamar Jackson, Tommy DeVito.
Get in.
Which is how bad the Commanders are.
Or how decimated the quarterback position
Or
is.
how good Tommy DeVito is.
That one as well.
Running back, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Warren.
Yeah. That kind of came on one huge run.
It did sort of really a little
They
bit.
had nothing. He like doubled the
know.
yards for the entire game on that one run.
I know. And, you know, Harris still had more rushing attempts than him and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey, Joe Nixon, I've put here. We know it's Joe Mixon, but Joe Nixon.
Really? He was top 5?
He was, I know.
Slow week.
Slow week indeed.
Richard Nixon top 5.
Richard Nixon top 5. Top 5 what?
Could be many.
Presidents.
could be many things.
Yeah.
Take your pick.
Criminals?
Probably. Talking heads on Futurama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Good.
he's up there. He's up there.
He is up there. I loved a Charleston chew. This is wide receiver Calvin Ridley. Tyreek Hill. Tank Dell. Keenan Allen. Honestly, I feel like we're repeating ourselves. I feel like I'm getting deja vu saying Tank Dell and Keenan Allen in this section as well. Even though you do the section, not me, but you get the idea. Brandon Ayuk as well. And then tight end Kittle, Kelsey, Oliver, David Njoku, and also Smart.
Who the hell's that?
One of the many Chargers tight ends who isn't Gerald Everett.
Donald Parham.
Yeah.
Is he one of them as well?
Any notes on any of these players, guys, who did well this week?
Brandon Ayuk looks really good. He look like when he's not a bit banged up like he had been for the past few weeks. Well, I mean, him and Debo. It's weird how he's overtaken Debo as the wide receiver 1 on that team now.
Would you go as far to say he's the Himmy of the week? Would you be as cringe bag as ESPN?
Himmy?
The Him Awards.
Oh. I thought you were going to ask me a sensible question like, who would you rather have for fantasy rest of season, Brandon Ayuk or Debo Samuel?
I wanted to ask you an absolute drivel question, which is what they usually say on ESPN.
Who would you have? Ayuk or Debo rest of season?
Ayuk, because he's got the rapport's there. Like the rapport with Purdy, for as long as Purdy's been the quarterback, it's always seemed to be with Ayuk over Debo.
Sharps?
Ooh, tough one, but yeah, I think I'd have to say Ayuk as well.
Yeah, Debo's one of those. It's like Lamar Jackson-itis, you know. You know what Lamar Jackson did a few years ago, so you're always wanting that. You know what Debo Samuel did 2 seasons ago, so that possibility always seems there. It's why people like Cooper Kupp are still going to be drafted super high next year, because that possibility is always there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like CMC coming though sort of cut his ceiling down a little bit, because he wasn't going to be that dual threat wide receiver running back anymore like he was for that weird sort of spell. Which I think has taken the shine off him a little bit.
Of course. Any notes on any of these players that did really well, Sharples, this week?
We just briefly mentioned him. I would just like to say that having Brock Purdy on my fantasy team is like having a warm glass of Horlicks in my lineup. I feel so safe when he's there. It's never too exciting. I mean, obviously it was 26 points last week, which is I think must be a season high. But I'm never really too worried about him busting. I always feel like he's going to get around that 16, 17 point mark, and it's just very nice. And I'm sort of wondering in your minds, where is he getting drafted next year? What sort of range do you have him in?
I mean, I don't really know. He's not going to be up there with the standard guys.
If I said quarterback 7,
he's always going to be a better real life quarterback than fantasy quarterback, I think.
I agree. For me, I think he's always going to be in the region of 8 to 10, 8 to 12, something like that.
Kills you saying that you have to draft complete rubbish like Justin Fields over him, but that's how fantasy football works. Justin Fields is nowhere near as good a quarterback as Brock Purdy is. That's not how fantasy works, though.
Yeah, true. True, but yeah, Brock Purdy, again, looking really good, coming off that bad spell.
Can I just shout DeAndre Swift out as well?
No.
A guy that we just because I went to sleep. I needed 14 points off my guy
DeAndre Swift.
It was time to get Swifty. Rick and Morty reference that, mate.
Shut up. Shut up. No affiliation with that show.
Whatsoever. I've not watched it in years, to be fair.
You had it on before we did this.
Yeah.
You're watching it now.
I know. We have to cut all this audio out. You can just hear it in the background. I needed 14 points off of my guy DeAndre Swift to beat a guy called Chris, who I think listens to this show. I think
Hamstry.
Chris Hamstry.
I think he might listen to this show, and just for when he's listening to this at some point this week or next week, I just want to say ha 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 ha.
It's what is incredibly funny about this story is it's incredibly selective because you use one example of having DeAndre Swift in a league where you won. You did have DeAndre Swift in another league where you were against somebody else, someone actually a bit closer to this podcast. Do you want to enlighten us on that one?
I'm only in one league.
Okay. The listeners can infer, I think, what I'm saying.
I lost to Sharples, yeah.
Me!
Yes, you did.
Yeah, do you know when you've got one of those leagues where you just try stuff out? you just try stuff out. You'll put
you'll try winning for once.
I put Joe Flacco in just in case he's playing was faster Cleveland.
Right, moving on. I just want to say, Barkley looked mint. Like he is that offense, and that worked. Cool. And also, did you see that Tank Dell touchdown catch?
Oh my goodness! Yes,
very nice.
Kyler nearly threw a similar one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Let's move on to the players who were not good though. Jamar Chase, obviously, some of that is to do with Joe Burrow. Austin Eckler, there were some pretty memey clips going around of Austin Eckler looking like an absolute tank. Not in a good way. I do not mean in a good way.
Do you mean James Harden in the light blue uniform?
I mean James Harden light blue uniform. I mean tank, not
meatball.
Not in the sense of he's running through guys. Tank in the sense of he looked unbelievably slow.
I thought you meant that he looked like...
No.
Right.
He looked quite slow. Stephon Diggs, the brother of the squeaky wheel. No, the wheel's squeaky brother. Something like that.
Pardon?
Stephon Diggs had a bad game, which also came after his brother was calling out his quarterback. Garrett Wilson and AJ Brown also had weeks to forget, really.
I'd just like to thank AJ Brown because I was against him this week and I had a good 30-point cushion. But you never know with AJ Brown, because obviously he scored big points. So for him to just pop up with 1.6 was just terrific.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's a shocking one because AJ Brown's been on a complete tear. I'm just watching this Austin Eckler run now.
Clip, go on. Describe it to us. So he's got the ball out of the backfield, just Herbert's handed it to him. He's broken out left, and he's...
It looks a bit like it's a halftime show and they've done like a punt return for $1 million and someone's 50-year-old dad's just having a go of it. That's what it looks like a little bit. That's not good.
No.
Oh, God.
Matty, when was this? It's first quarter as well. It's in the first quarter. He should have a lot of juice left as well. Speaking of running backs, though, yeah, Josh Jacobs also with a week to forget. Travis Etienne, surprisingly, considering the Jags put up so many points. Trevor Lawrence was stealing all his touchdowns. We spoke about Derrick Henry as well. All these guys, I mean, is any of these going to stick? I mean, I've always spoke about Derrick Henry. Any of the rest of them, I mean, I'm obviously worried about Garrett Wilson. We'll just see about the quarterback change. But what do you think, Al?
Well, I'm worried about Jamar Chase.
Mm-hmm. We'll get into that.
I think if Jamar Chase is banged up, there's a possibility of them kind of shutting him down in a couple of weeks.
Do not say that.
Sorry, I know I put that into the universe now, but
don't. But right, let's move on to swiftly on and swiftly through our projection beaters out because it was a week to forget for us as well.
April Fools. It was a shocker. It was a real shocker. It got to about 9 o'clock on Sunday and I thought to myself, wow, I've not thought much about our projection beaters. Let me just see how they've got on. Wish I hadn't have looked. Kyler was alright though. He had a nice game. It wasn't quite a hit because of the large projection that he had. Achan got injured, so that's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Christian Kirk, it was a passable game, but it was a miss, and Musgrave had a passable game. So Lewis didn't have a terrible week. I had Russ, 14 points. Let's ride. It was fine. Aaron Jones got injured. Looked really bad. Luke, you're going to get into that. It wasn't as bad as it looked. It looked like there was 5 people bending his leg the wrong way. Hollywood Brown and Tyler Higbee were complete whiffs from me. I apologise. Maybe we should adjust our expectations on this Cardinals offense, as Sharples alluded to about 5-10 minutes ago. I was sure that Hollywood and Kyler would connect in this game, and they just didn't. And Higbee was a bit of a shot in the dark, but the Rams did win that game. Josh Dobbs, 16.9 points. I think he plays cleaner football than that moving forward, and you can definitely start him for fantasy. Singletree was nice, though, for Sharples, 19.8 points. Shame Damien Pierce is probably going to come back soon. But then Cooper and Komet again. Just not a great time for our wide receivers last week. Not a great time at all. You'd think it would be the running backs that we missed on, considering President Nixon was there. Number 5 overall.
President Nixon's head from Futurama.
You win some, you lose some, lads, and we lost every goddamn one.
Swiftly on though to some lighter news. Bit of lighter news. Let's get into the injuries. God. Wow. So Joe Burrow, he's done for the year. Suffered a torn ligament in his right wrist in the loss. You could see it when it happened. He threw a touchdown on it, and you could see I saw the video. I don't know about you two. I saw the video when he throws it in the catch for a touchdown, and he's like holding his. I thought it was like a celebration. Like he's like, oh wow, my hand's on fire, boiling. He's on fire, and I was like, cool.
Someone needs to sit the Bengals owner and the coaching staff and the director of football or whatever they call it over there. What do they call it? The GM. They need to sit them down and tell them the cautionary tale of Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
Because with the injuries that Burrow's had this far into his career, which isn't very far, he's going to be retired in 5 years. They need to sort that out.
Did you see that graphic that was going around about the sack numbers at this point in the careers? And I think Luck was on something about 110 and Burrow's on something like 160 at the same point. And
Andrew Luck,
you know what happened with Andrew.
And Andrew Luck was just as good as, if not depending
Probably
on who you
better.
ask, a little bit better
Just
than
a
Joe
little
Burrow.
bit better,
And Joe Burrow's one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the whole league. And Andrew Luck's body couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And he was a thicker guy than Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's a really big guy.
With 2 C's.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Same game. Mark Andrews suffered a cracked fibula and an ankle ligament injury. He's more than likely done for the season, as we were saying before. Like they've sort of worded it like he might come back. If he does, I've got a feeling that will be if the Ravens have a deep playoff run and they need him back. He will make his way back somehow. I would say that he's done for fantasy football this year.
So you should likely claim his replacement on waivers.
Yes.
Isaiah Likely.
I agree.
And also listen to Hero by Enrique Iglesias on repeat.
Yes.
Yeah. Aaron Jones exited early with a nasty looking knee injury, like you said, Al. But tests showed ACL is intact. Unlikely to play in week 12. Not surprised, but doesn't sound like he's going to be out for a lengthy amount of time. But yeah, so avoided a major catastrophic injury there. Cooper Kupp suffered a low ankle sprain and didn't return to his game.
Yeah, he's done, isn't he?
Yeah, he's considered day-to-day. Obviously, low ankle sprain, not as bad as a high ankle sprain. But, you know, his status will very much be in question for week 12. Devon Achan ruled out very early in the second quarter after he just landed on his injured knee and was held out as a precaution. He was actually apparently wanting to come back on the field protesting, but they wouldn't let him come back on. So he's considered day-to-day. He's not been ruled out of the Week 12 game against the Jets, but just keep an eye on that. Obviously, you know, that's the risk in starting guys like that who are coming back from injury. Sometimes they're absolutely fine. You know, I would say, obviously, before the week, there was just as much chance of this happening as there was him having a 150 rushing yard game. You know, you just don't know.
He only needs 2 carries for that.
Exactly. Geno Smith exited briefly in the Seahawks-Rams game with an elbow and a tricep injuries, but he did come back in the game and led a very impressive non-game winning field goal. That was hilarious. Did you see that? They literally, as time was running down, they whipped it into field goal range, and Jason Myers missed, and they lost. Amazing stuff. You love to see anything like that.
Yeah.
Same game, Ken Walker ruled out with a, as Pete Carroll says, legit oblique strain. Probably going to miss week 12 because it's a short week for the Seahawks. Yeah. If Carbonnett's out there, have a look at Carbonnet.
I had Carbonnet on my bench for 11 weeks in our sleeper league, and dropped him to add David Njoku because Mark Andrews went down, and now Ken Walker goes out and he actually might be relevant.
Yeah, I think it's karma for me dropping Ken Walker last year, and you scooping him up, you devil.
I forgot about that. Thanks, Lee.
And then, last but not least, I put this because I feel like it's the least relevant. Deshaun Watson to undergo season-ending shoulder surgery, so he's also done for the year.
Deshaun Watson reminds me of when I used to work at Tesco, because I also used to get paid for doing nothing.
Before we get into some of the news, though, I want to throw it back to a segment from last year, which I wasn't actually present for. I was on holiday at the time. Now I remember.
That was a great segment.
I remember.
that was the best
I distinctly
segment
remember.
there
I was
was.
on a train in Italy. I was on a train in Italy between Venice and Milan. Right.
God.
And I tuned into the podcast.
Menace.
I don't think you'd have been the only person between Venice and Milan tuning in.
No, I saw a bloke just up, and he was like, "You listen to this podcast?" I was like, "I run it," and he's like, "You do a class job." That didn't happen.
Yeah, next but better.
They played it over the tannoy of the train.
Good.
And then I remember hearing you say, "We're in the Jacuzzi of Concern," and I'm like, "God,
What?
I'm gone for a week."
I'm gone for a week and we've invented the best segment there ever was.
So I'm bringing it back. I want to do an AFC North edition of the Jacuzzi of Concern really quickly. Basically talking about the injuries to players on the Browns, on the Ravens, on the Bengals, and what you're getting in the Jacuzzi of Concern about the players left, about the collateral damage. Okay. I'm going to start with Joe Burrow. Jacuzzi of Concern, lads, for the pass catchers and this offense in general. Al.
You could brew tea in this jacuzzi, mate.
It's that hot.
It's boiling. I'm OUT. I was already kind of out on T. Higgins because I've been trying to get out of him everywhere that I have him the past few weeks just because of the injuries. But then this idea that Chase is a bit banged up as well. I don't think Higgins is going to even be on the team next year. So they can't even see it out and get to a Super Bowl to say goodbye to him. Whoever the quarterback is not going to be Joe Burrow. Their offensive philosophy might change. They're not going to win very many games. You need one of the best quarterbacks in the whole league to facilitate two fantasy relevant wide receivers, and Higgins and Chase have been okay at best this year in context with what we thought they were going to be.
Yeah.
So nah.
Are you in the same jacuzzi, Sharples?
Yeah, there's bits of carrots floating in, onion, some seasonings. I'm a soup. I'm a witch's pot.
You're in a broth.
Yeah, it's done. I'm afraid there's nothing else to say. It's
I
done.
would so go out there and try to trade Jamar Chase for Mike Evans.
Okay.
Because I don't think you could get someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown.
No.
But I think you could get Mike Evans, and Mike Evans has been great this year. So I would do that. I don't want to say that we condone that as a podcast, because I don't know what you two think, but I would do that.
It's a thinker. It's a thinker.
I'd do it.
I wouldn't, just because I want to see. You never know. Jamar Chase could get by because he's going to get peppered with targets probably.
True.
Who's the backup? Sorry,
Jake Browning.
Yeah, it is.
Oh no, that doesn't inspire any confidence. Just his name alone, it's not exotic
Jake
enough.
Platinuming.
Listen, I know we're not talking about Chad Johnson here, Chet Johnson, but not everyone can be Chet. Not everyone can be Chet Johnson. Sharples, Jake
True.
Browning, fine name, I would say. Quarterback play questionable. Ravens, Jacuzzi of Concern, specifically for Lamar Jackson here, with Mark Andrews now being out. Sharples, you start us out with this one.
No, I think I'm just on a mild simmer. I think his throwing touchdown numbers will fall off a little bit because he loves throwing up to Mark Andrews in the red zone, in the end zone, so he can come up, grab it with those big paws. But with Lamar, I mean, he's still going to be that rushing threat. I still think Zay Flowers can be a really exciting piece. So I think with his legs and with the talent that he does have, although I think he could do it a little bit more, I think he's going to be okay. I don't think we'll see too much of a drop off.
Okay, so like a nice, lukewarm bath.
Yeah.
Al?
That's similar. We're in the same jacuzzi because I think it might mean Lamar runs it a bit, which could be better for fantasy. Plus, I don't think Mike Andrews had really gotten into his stride yet this season, 3 months in.
Of course.
But yeah.
And finally, the Browns. I'm talking specifically the pass catchers here, not just the offense. Amari Cooper mainly as well. Deshaun Watson now being out. What's the jacuzzi looking like for Amari Cooper?
Al? It's pretty hot. It's not as hot as it was with the Bengals wide receivers, but I'm pretty uncomfortable. I don't want to sit in here for very long. The quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Oh, if Dorian Thompson-Robinson was throwing it to Donovan Peoples-Jones, we would be in for a treat.
Wow, that would. Why did they trade
DPJ?
Donnie Peeps J?
Yeah,
Dorian
Thompson-Robinson out of UCLA, not a super high prospect. Clearly got some talent, mainly with his legs. looks a little bit overmatched. Maybe they put 90-year-old Joe Flacco in there and he throws it to Amari Cooper and only Amari Cooper. But yeah, bit concerned on this one, especially since Cooper's looked really good this year.
Sharples?
Yeah, I think it's a tough one, really. I think probably less concerned just because, I mean, with someone like Jamar Chase, when he really goes off, like when he got the 45 points in one game against me, two of those were like 60-yard touchdowns, whereas Cooper doesn't really do that, and so the fact that he's gone from the fact that he's got a downgrade at quarterback, that's not really going to stop him from, doing his usual 6 receptions for 70, 80 yards. So I think considering where you drafted Cooper, you're probably not too far off that. Whereas if we go back to, me being in the soup with Chase, that guy was probably a, second or third overall pick. And now he's, we're talking about trading him for someone like Mike Evans, who again, great player, but don't know where he was drafted. 6th round, wasn't it? So it's just levels to it, I think.
Of course, yeah. And, I mean, all valid points. I just couldn't get the thought out of my head that we've been robbed of the Donny Peeps chair and Dory Tomer combination.
Yeah.
But moving on to a bit of news, Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson?
Zach Wilson.
Zach is not well, son, because he's been benched for Tim Boyle.
Oh, yeah.
And as you alluded to, how the Browns are signing Joe
Is that
Flacco.
that character from Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Ooh, Tim Boyle.
Yeah.
I think his name's Charles in Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Charles Boyle.
Browns signing Joe Flacco as well, so he potentially will be the starter in the next few weeks. And then the Patriots this coming week are going to play a different quarterback on every drive, by the sounds of it. Sharples, you had a little bit on trades you wanted to talk about.
Yes, I did. So I got 2 very different trade offers this week, and it just highlighted to me, what is a good trade and what is a bad trade, and just sort of what to look for. So first of all, I'll reel off the good trade, which was sent to us by our very own dearly beloved Alex Brindle. So this was in our sleeper league. I have Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews had gone down with the injury at this time. We thought season ending. So I was in need of a tight end, didn't have a backup. Alex offered me George Kittle for Mike Evans. I had a quick look at Alex's roster. He had Dalton Kincaid nestled on the bench. And so I thought it was just a really good example of a trade that benefits both parties. So Al had obviously realised he had a bit of a logjam at tight end. That was a place that he could probably move on from, get some value back. He identified a need that I had, in that I'd just lost a premier tight end. I needed a new one. He looked down my roster. I thought Mike Evans was pretty fair compensation. To be fair, I've not got a great team in that one, so it's either a really good wide receiver or a not very good one. And I just thought it was a good example of not just thinking, oh, I want a player, I'm going to go get him. It's studying your own roster, looking around, and realising that the trade has to work for both parties. So yeah, I just thought that was the ideal way to approach a trade, and the things that you should look out for, get value for yourself, but also recognise you have to give value to the other person in order for it to go through. Unless you're just a silver-tongued devil like myself, but unfortunately we can't all be like that.
And you rejected it, didn't you?
Actually,
as well,
go on. I don't know
you
if you
rejected it,
comment
mate.
on that,
You rejected the trade. I'll comment on it in that way. You rejected the trade. Fair enough. I mean, yeah. What I will say is, I knew that Mike Evans... I know the value of Mike Evans. We're not in draft season anymore where Mike Evans was a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick this year because they didn't know what Baker Mayfield was going to be. Mike Evans has been legit all year. So I knew that I had to offer you my better tight end in George Kittle rather than... Because you wouldn't have taken Kincaid. So it was about me being like, okay, well, I'm going to have to offer him Kittle because I want Evans, but I'll be fine with Kincaid as my tight end. So yeah, it's weighing it up. It's not like I wanted to get rid of George Kittle. It would have been a lot easier for me to offer up Dalton Kincaid, who I think I picked up off the waiver wire in that league. But yeah, like you're saying, it's weighing up what you want, what the other team needs. Yeah.
No, and to be fair, the only reason I rejected it is because Andrews was already locked into my lineup, and I couldn't afford to lose Evans because I had no one on the bench. Although I still got hammered in the week anyway, so I probably could have accepted it. But then moving on to what I deem to be an absolutely terrible trade in a different league. So in this particular league, it's good to point out that I already have Travis Kelce as my tight end one, and Keenan Allen. So I was offered a trade of I would be giving up Keenan Allen, and the other person would be sending me DK Metcalf and Evan Engram. So for a bit of context, Keenan Allen, I believe, is the wide receiver 2 on the season, and I want to say DK Metcalf was around about the wide receiver 38 when I last checked. Obviously a great player, but it's not coming together this season. The addition of Evan Engram, that's clearly just a case of he's gone, oh, well, he's not going to do a like-for-like swap, so I'm going to add another piece. But if he'd have looked at my roster, he'd have seen that Evan Engram adds no value to me whatsoever because I've already got Travis Kelce. I'm never going to bench Travis Kelce for Evan Engram, so there's no point in having him. It adds no value to me. I also thought it was a little bit cheeky, the fact that it was DK Metcalf in the first place. It could have been someone a bit more realistic. But again, to me, that's just a classic example of he's looked around, seen a player that he likes, gone, I want him, I'm just going to bundle up 2 players and see if he accepts. That trade is never going to go through. He's not considered it from my point of view, and I just think that is the absolute wrong way to approach trade. So I just wanted to highlight the difference between value propositions and actually considering the other person's perspective before you send out a stupid trade and that gets slapped back to you like a Roger Federer returning a serve at Wimbledon.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah. I think very, very, very good advice there, Shells. Exactly. You got to look at the context when you're trading. Really, you can't just be like, I like this player and this player, and I'm just going to chuck you these guys because I don't want them. They're expendable to me. Well, no. You have to make a trade that works for both sides, unless you're in a league with a bunch of idiots. Which you sound like you are, Sharples, with this person. I hope they listen to the podcast because they're an idiot.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Al, Thanksgiving week. Remember to do your teams Wednesday night, Thursday morning. There's 3 games on Thursday. But we're just going to briefly say what we're thankful for this fantasy football season. I'll go first. I'm thankful for D'Amico Ryans.
nice.
Because he and his Texans team have produced 3 fantasy studs on a team where we expected maybe 1 at best. They play great football to watch on Red Zone, and they provided the league with one of those teams that are involved in games where you want fantasy pieces, otherwise known as shootouts. Texans are in there, just like I think the Lions and the Seahawks got added into that shootout kind of category last year. You want plays in those Texans games. Thank you, D'Amico Ryans. Lou?
I'm thankful for the 2023 rookie draft class. CJ Stroud, as you probably alluded to, the 7th overall in fantasy scoring among quarterbacks. Anthony Richardson, before he got injured, he was top 15 in points per game. The running back position, Bijan Robinson, 17th overall. Jahmyr Gibbs, 8th overall. Devon Achane, 28th overall, and that's with being on IR. He's actually 2nd in points per game across all running backs. 5 rookie wide receivers in the top 36. Nakua 9th, Addison 13th, Dell 16th, just to name the big guns. And 2 top 8 tight ends, Laporta 5th and Kincaid 8th. That is, I'm pretty sure that's unheard of in recent memory. Fantastic fantasy options to come for many, many years.
Yes. Sharps?
Yeah, so for me, this is a point that gets hammered home the more sort of leagues that I join, because the league that I care about, the one that we're all in, obviously, Alex is the commissioner, does a grand job. We can that league's been going for a few years now. We're all in a group chat together. We can tweak it, respond to feedback, that kind of stuff. We've made it our own. But obviously, when you're joining a random league with randomers, it's the set format. And being in our lovely, wholesome league, it just makes me so thankful that we got rid of kickers. Because I'm in other leagues where, and obviously the standard format, you have kickers. They're pointless. They're no fun. There's no skill to picking them. You don't know when they're going to have a good week or a bad week. Unless you get Justin Tucker and then you get idiots who are picking him in like the 7th round. There's just no point. And it's incredibly annoying, and I hate them. So I'm thankful that we scrap kickers, and I would recommend to anyone that's listening that's currently dealing with the nightmare that is kickers, next year, if you're in a league that you can have an influence on, get rid of them because you will you'll love it. Swap him for a flex player, so much better.
We should call him Justin Kicker.
Justin Kicker. Someone said that already, haven't they?
Yeah, they're not like defenses that you can kind of judge it by.
It's a bit more predictive, defenses.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that's what we're thankful for. Moving on. Looking ahead. Week 12? Week 12. Looking at those fantasy pieces that are in your lineups. No teams on bye this week. Love that.
Yeah.
We'll start it as we always do.
Forget about it.
The Forget About It section. Guys that are locked into your lineup that we're not going to chat about, but don't be an idiot. Keep them in there. Quarterback, Allen, Lamar, Mahomes, Prescott and Herbert.
Forget about it.
Running back, McCaffrey. That Tank Eckler. Etienne, Kamara, Barkley, Jacobs, Johnny T, Brian Robinson Jr. and Jahmyr Gibbs.
Forget about it.
Wish we had a nickname for one of those players. Wide receiver, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill. Is Cooper Kupp going to play?
Potentially leave him in there.
Jamar Chase, despite what we just said. Diggs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans.
Forget about it.
And tight end, TJ Hawkinson, Sam Laporta, George Kittle, and Taylor Swift's boyfriend.
Forget about it.
On to the projection beaters, the players that we actually think are going to outscore the ESPN projections by more than 4 fantasy points. Big time bounce back week, lads. How are we bouncing back at the running back position? Lou.
We're bouncing back with Bijan Robinson.
Oh no.
Projected 14.6, so a bit of a steep projection. And if you're listening to this, you're probably seeing that big red number next to Robinson on your fantasy football platform, indicating that it's a bad matchup. I feel like that's a bit misleading. He's against the Saints this week, and the Saints have actually been allowing 148 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown per game over the last 3 games. Become a bit of an exploitable area of that defense, I'd say. So, in spite of Arthur Smith, the Falcons do have the weapons to make the most of that weakness, specifically Robinson, who we saw sort of completely take control of the backfield in the Falcons' previous game. He had 22 rushing attempts, which is almost double that of Patterson and Algier combined. More importantly, he was also successful on those carries. He averaged 4.3 yards per carry, 95 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown. I feel like the Falcons coaching staff are sort of slowly realising, oh yeah, we drafted a guy in the first round, didn't we? Yeah, you did. So they're starting to put the ball in his hands more, and that's allowing Robinson to showcase why he was drafted that highly. And I think that continues this week against an also stumbling Saints team. Bit of a winner-takes-all game in the NFC South as well. I think Robinson has a good game.
Nice. I'm going to go DeAndre Swift. I love this one. Swift is my guy, as I've said a million times just this episode. He's loving life as the Philadelphia running back 1. Not only is he the current running back 7 on the season, averaging 15 fantasy points a game, but he also won me my week, if I've not said already, against a listener of the show called Chris, I think he's called.
Hamstry.
Chris Hamstry. Just bring that up twice for you. He's gone over 100 scrimmage yards 4 times this year already, including this past week against the Chiefs. And he gets a 15.6 point projection this week against Buffalo. I think people are starting to cotton on to the fact that Buffalo are not great defending the run. Give up a huge 36-point game earlier in the season to Travis Etienne, and over the past weeks, they've given up a combined 40 fantasy points to Javonte Williams and Breece Hall. So with Swift's talent and the Eagles' relentless running game, Swift is a bit of a smash play this week against the Buffalo Bills. Sharples?
Yeah, just dead quick, Lou, the way that you feel when Al mentions Jandro Swift is how I feel when you guys mention the Cowboy, just so you know how it feels.
The Cowboy?
Did I say Cowboy? Yeah, Cowboys.
Who is he, specifically?
All the Cowboys.
Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood. We never talk about Clint Eastwood.
My running back is Rachaad White, projected 15 points. I was very shocked to see this because he's on my roster, but he's snuck his way up through the back door to be the running back 6 on the year so far, which I think is absolutely mental. Going up against Indiana, who are currently giving up the 4th most points to fantasy running backs. I think it should be a relatively even game, which generally is a favourable game script for running backs. But the thing that Rachaad White's been showing over the past 4 or 5 games is that he's pretty game script proof. He's had games where he's had 20 carries, a couple of rushing touchdowns, so he's shown he can do that when the game calls for it. But there's been a couple of games where he's only had 9 carries, but in those games, he's had 7 targets in each. So when the run game's not working, he's being thrown to consistently. Good receiving threat, good rushing threat. Seems like he's doing it all. I think a projection of 15 is an absolute snip this week against the Colts.
Nice. Let's go wide receiver, Lou.
I'm going to go with Michael Pittman Jr., projected 15.1 points. I'm going with the higher projections, you know. I'm not messing around this week. I think these are guys I think are going to go absolutely off. So yeah, in games that Gardner Minshew's played, Pittman is averaging over 10 targets a game, which is a pretty eye-watering stat. In spite of that, though, Pittman, he's only surpassed 20 fantasy points once this year. He's been consistently solid, but not really a game breaker for you. Partly due to sort of low touchdown numbers, only caught 3 so far on the season, and relatively low yardage totals as well in relation to his receptions. But I feel like this matchup in particular is one that can rectify those shortcomings, as he's going up against the team you just spoke about, Sharples, a pretty reeling Buccaneers team who are giving up over 306 passing yards a game over the last month of the season. That they are ridiculous numbers. You have to target this secondary, basically. We know this Colts team is volatile. The matchups, they easily get out of hand. We've seen that, but that's also somewhat true for the Bucs. So, we know Minshew, he's a gunslinger. Can be relied upon when these matchups get sort of spicy and high scoring. So the matchups are there. The quarterback's reliable enough. I think Pittman goes off this week. I'm calling it.
Nice. And I'm going to go Josh Downs, wide receiver for the Indianapolis
Whoa!
Colts.
Okay. This is a shootout between us two.
Yeah, I'm calling my shot. I wanted to go 1v1 against you this week, Lou. Projected just the 10 points, so 5 points less than Pittman.
Okay, that's safer than me. Go on.
We know about the Tampa Bay defense because Lou's just told us. But from weeks 5 to 8, Downs was on a bit of a tear, averaging more than 16 fantasy points in that time frame. It was a real breakout. However, he got hurt in week 9, which kind of hampered him in week 10 as well. Fast forward now, week 12, off the bye week, he's healthy again, he's going to bounce back. This Colts, they're a rushing team, but they're also just a great offense in general. No one has gone over 20 points more than the Colts in the whole NFL. And Tampa Bay good at stopping the run, not very good at stopping the pass. I think what we saw from Downs in that 3-week period before he got hurt is what we're going to see again now he's healthy. So I'm going Josh Downs.
Interesting.
Sharps.
I've gone for wide receiver for the Houston Texans, Austin Eckler Dell, Tank Dell, projected 15 points, which I think is very measly considering his past 3 games, 30 points, 19 points, and 29. Very beatable. And in the same way that great detectives follow the noses, I follow the targets. And this man's had 35 targets over his last 3 games. Absolutely insane. Obviously, it helps that he's had 4 touchdowns in those last 3 as well. But I mean, with that kind of volume he's getting, even if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's still odds on to beat the projection of 15. So I just think it's one of those weirdly low targets that I've got to attack. Jaguars, no slouch on defense, but obviously not great. Could be a mini shootout because we've got 2 good offenses there when they're both clicking. So I think this could be a smash play for Mr. Dell.
Nice. Tight end, Lou?
I'm going to go Evan Engram, projected 11.6, seen over 7 targets and 5 receptions a game on the season, along with 10.5 fantasy points per game. Reliable, consistent. That's everything, you can say about Evan Engram. He's a really good tight end. Only place he's faltered this year, similar to Michael Pittman, is touchdowns. But if there's any week to change that, it's this week, facing the Texans, who are giving up league-high numbers in receptions and fantasy points to tight ends. So Engram should have plenty of opportunities for fantasy success this week.
Nice. I'm going Isaiah Likely. Let's go. No, Mark Andrews. I think he's a super talented tight end. And hopefully he's the tight end one for this team now. A team in the Ravens that has targets to be grabbed by someone. Someone needs to take control of this receiving core, basically. Zay Flowers hasn't done it so far. I don't think Odell's going to do it consistently. So, there's definitely targets and fantasy points to be had here. I think the 8.4 projection for Likely, if he has a good game this week and establishes himself, is going to be the lowest it will be for the rest of the season. So I'm jumping on it while I can in an amazing matchup against the Chargers. Sharps?
Actually, a bit embarrassing this one. I had totally forgot that Lou had picked Evan Engram, and I also had him down. So I am pivoting on the fly, scrolling down the tight end list, and there's only one man that could slot in. Only one man that could slot in last minute. The wildcat himself. Taysom Hill, projected 9.7 points.
Ooh, that's a big projection for him.
It's a big projection. I mean, we know he busted for me last week, but the game script went against him. I think this Atlanta match might be a bit more what we're looking for. They're giving up a lot of points to tight ends at a glance. And, he's gorgeous. He's got a great smile. Taysom Hill.
Can I just ask you to read out your Engram notes just to... Because we can compare. We can then compare who... No, okay.
Quarterback? No one wants to hear 2 notes on Evan Engram.
Very true.
Quarterback.
I'm going to go Trevor Lawrence at quarterback then. Just to change the subject entirely.
Yes.
I'm going to go with Evan Engram's quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. Have you got him, Sharples?
No, I don't.
Cool. Projected 17.1. Coming off the best game of the year, his best game of the year by far this past week. 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns for Trevor Lawrence. He was completely in control of that team and the offense, back on track with Calvin Ridley. Great performance overall by Lawrence, really. Somewhat to the detriment of, some of the other players, Travis Etienne, for example. But I am hoping that momentum for Lawrence carries over to this week in what is the joint highest over-under of the week versus the Texans at 48.5. With the Jags, they're only favoured by 1.5, so plenty of points to go around in this one, we hope. Another one of those games, we point them at every week, games that you want pieces in. The Texans, they've been in a few barn burners recently. That reflects in the numbers. They've been giving up over 250 passing yards per game over the last 3 games. With a fully healthy wide receiver room again, I'm confident that the Jags and Lawrence, they can put up numbers against that defense. They can keep up with that Texans offense because they've been red hot. They're going to have to keep up with them. So I've got confidence in Lawrence to keep it rolling, keep this game competitive, and put up plenty of fantasy points.
Nice. I'm going to go Justin Fields. It was a nice performance from Fields this past week, back from injury, 21 fantasy points, 100 yards on the ground, and a pretty tidy game through the air, so that's exactly what you want from the man. Based on this and the previous 2 weeks before his injury, it is, and I say this with a huge amount of trepidation, it is okay to assume that Fields from last year is back, I think. So his 17.4 fantasy point projection this week against Minnesota should be too low. You know, Russell Wilson just threw 250 yards on them. They're completely middle of the road, absolute neutral defensive matchup. And I think there's a lot of points to be had on this one, so I'm jumping on the Justin Fields bandwagon, unfortunately. Sharps?
Yeah, I've gone for Trevor Lawrence, quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars. No, just kidding. Justin Fields, quarterback. Jordan Love. Jordan Love, quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. He started off the season really well and then slumped a little bit, but his floor seems to be stabilised, and his floor looks to be around the sort of 14-point mark. He's projected 16 this week. And I think coming up against the Detroit team that's kind of the perfect team that you want to play against in fantasy when you're a quarterback, because they've not got a very good defense, so they scope to score points on them, but they do have a really good offense, so you're going to need to keep slinging that ball. They're giving up the 7th most points to fantasy quarterbacks. Should be a bit of a juicy game if the Packers come to play, and I just think 16 is a beatable score considering how open the game might be. So Jordan Love, Mr. Lover Man.
Very nice, very nice. Well, let's have a quick look at those games in Week 12. Sharps, have you got a...
Let's go. Starting with bad
turkey-based. Have you got a turkey-based
uh,
tier list for us?
Giants, Patriots, Titans, Panthers, Broncos, Browns, and without Joe Burrow, I've had to put the Bengals, Steelers in there.
Oh, yeah. I think Broncos Browns deserves them there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree with you, and I also agree with that position in Sharples. You cannot have a game in the Bengals and the Steelers with 2 backup quarterbacks and it be anything less than a stinker.
Yeah.
Couple of frustrating ones in the map because we've got really good teams playing against really terrible teams and sort of cancels it out a little bit. I'm sure you can guess a few of them. We've got the Cowboys against the Commanders, the Jets against the Dolphins, the Raiders against the Chiefs. Colts, Buccaneers has a bit of potential, but I had to go meh. Falcons, Saints, Cardinals, Rams, and Vikings, Bears.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
Moving into the good, I think there's a case for a couple of these to be great, but I went with good. Lions, Packers, Texans, Jags, Ravens, Chargers.
Yeah, I'd agree, I think.
And into the great, 2 fat ladies, 88. We've got the Seahawks, 49ers, and the Eagles against the Bills.
Nice. Yeah, I bet the Eagles win that game handily.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. That's all we've got.
That is all we've got. Any closing thoughts?
Have a great Thanksgiving if you celebrate.
Okay. That's a good closing thought for this week. I said okay. Sharples, any better closing thoughts?
Listen, just keep Mark Andrews in your thoughts. Pray for him. We'll try and get him linked up with Aaron Rodgers' doctor, and hopefully he'll be back next week.
Yeah.
He will be. If that's the case, I'm sure he will be back next week.
And a quick shout out to listener of the show, Chris, whose fantasy team I beat this week.
Chris Armstrong.
Cool. That'll do it. Thanks very much for listening.
See you in a bit.
See ya.
Bye-bye.